I'm Catherine Ross, and I'm here live from the NYSE with Jim Cramer. Jim, what's on the top of your mind?
Well, I just had a stunning interview with Gary Kelly, one of my favorite CEOs at Southwest. Boy, they delivered a very good quarter despite the max. The consumer demand is very strong. So one takeaway from the interview was business is really good. But the other thing that mattered most was that he just said, listen, I am still not happy with Boeing. Now, I asked him if he did think that Muhlenberg should leave. He did not tell me that, but he just said, look, maybe we're even thinking about sourcing away. Now, that would be incredible. Southwest Air became a split source and went to Airbus. It was a dispiriting interview from the point of view of when the Boeing planes will be back in the air and whether the relationship can be salvaged. He said it was not irreparable, but I did not get any comfort. I was hoping what he would say is, listen, these guys are doing everything right. They've given me the mea culpa. I feel great. He did not give us that.
Jim, this morning in your Real Money column, you wrote about China and earnings, which was interesting to me. So I'm wondering, right now, should we be paying attention to EPS or China?
Well, I think that we should be paying attention to EPS, and people are pretty downbeat overall about how the quarters are going. I don't find that to be the case, but what I've focused on, when you see a stock like Lam Research, which is an actual alert name, and what are they talking about? Really great orders from China. When you see and listen to the end of the excellent PayPal call by Dan Schulman, what is he talking about? The great new relationship he has in China for PayPal, which is really kind of extraordinary. So we're seeing one of the things that I think is ignored in the Tesla quarter, and Tesla's a very much battleground, but if you play ball with the regulators, that's what PayPal suggests you do too. You can put up a factory very quickly, you can become a partner and being a very good business for e-commerce and mobile. That's really important. And you know what? Lam Research has the equipment you need for 5G semis. So I gave those examples in that. I could have extended to Micron, but I want to hear more what they said. But the notion of the piece I did for Real Money is that there are ways to do business with China without pissing off the president. And I say that because PayPal said they worked with our government too in order to be able to make what they're doing. So it was I wrote a positive piece about China because I've been so negative. And I think people should read it to understand that there's a constructive way to approach China too. Even though I think the president is going to get destructive pretty quickly if we don't see a big order for 787 planes or for soybeans.
You mentioned Tesla, which did say in its earnings report last night that it expects China to be one of the biggest markets for the
factory. And look, it was a non-promotional. David felt that Elon still did some promotional, but we're all used to Elon just bashing everyone. He was very statesman-like. I'm not kidding, okay? He was statesman-like, and I hope he sees the reaction. When you're statesman-like, sometimes you can kill more flies with honey than you can with chemical and nuclear weapons.
But Jim, I want to take a step back because I want to focus on the EPS beat. We were expecting a loss of 42 cents, but Tesla then put out an adjusted EPS of $1.
Let me give the bears the due for a second. It's very hard to have a decline in revenues and still have an increase in earnings. So, there be people who will just be suspicious of that. If you take a look at Chipotle's call yesterday, there was an increase in revenues and there a concomitant increase in earnings. So it's highly unusual, and that's why the bears are going to say, wait a second. Like Greg Reyes, who follows me and is excellent on Twitter, you say, oh, come on, Jim, don't buy into this. And look, there's every reason to be suspicious because of the track record of the company. That said, they did build a factory in China, and the cars are selling. And compare that with Ford last night. It says the cars aren't selling. So now we don't really know if the cars, they just started the factory, but obviously there's a lot of demand. But my takeaway with Tesla is you take it off the critical list. You don't necessarily have to buy it. I appreciate all the people who criticize me about Tesla. I did hate it at 50, but then because then it went to 30, and then when it got back to 50, I said, okay, listen, it kind of had its round trip. I now like it. And what I don't like about the people who blast me on Twitter or when it comes to Tesla is that they just are mountebanks and they're knaves, they're fools, and they're stupid. Otherwise, I welcome them to Bar San Miguel any night of the week.
All right, now you have to go over onto realmoney.com to read Jim's latest column. I highly suggest it. And I also want to talk about Real Money stock of the day, Microsoft.
Well, yeah, okay, Microsoft was beautiful. Now, the headlines immediately talked about how there was a slowing in Azure because what happened is they said, listen, we're not going to be able to grow as fast as we have because we have too many customers, and that's just part part of the law of large numbers. It was headlines got it completely wrong. It drove the stock down. It was a 13-page conference call. I tell anyone to listen to this call because what it was about was Azure being triumphant, doing these great partnerships. I single out the VMware partnership as being incredibly positive. SAP partnership be very, very good. I really felt that when you looked at gaming, there's 2 billion people who game. They did well there. LinkedIn is doing incredible. The new Windows 365 is doing very, very well. But the artificial intelligence component, and also GitHub, by the way, where a lot of companies are using that to write. Ford Motor singled out for 8,000 seats of GitHub. But when you look at the artificial intelligence notion of what they're doing with Azure, you have to say, you know what, Amazon, run for the money. And I'd like to hear what Google Cloud Services has, because what's happened here is that Microsoft has just accelerated and accelerated. And by the way, the gross margins for cloud, for Azure, are staggering. So there's going to be a lot of return capital, a lot of double-digit gains. I suspect that we'll get a dividend increase, and it's going to be a horse race, Microsoft versus Apple, when it comes to the $1.2 trillion, $1.3 trillion market cap. Microsoft was magnificent. Congratulations to Satya Nadella for quietly building a company that is not in Washington's face, that is doing quite well.
All right, well, I was going to ask you if the less than ambitious guidance that Microsoft offered was the reason for the muted stock price.
No, it's not even true. There again, I mean, I've known Amy Hood since she was at Goldman Sachs. I guess I've known Amy Hood for 30 years. And, Amy Hood doesn't really give guidance. She just says, listen, here's the extrapolation. Extrapolation's good. So it bothered me when they do like a 2-line guidance. What you really need to know about Microsoft is that it's got tremendous momentum. It's got accelerating revenue growth in key business lines. And it's going to go, as we said at the end of our excellent bulletin that Jeff Marks wrote, it's going to all-time highs. So get long it.
All right, Jim, we've got a very exciting show over on Bull Market.
I do want to just say a couple other things. I interviewed Jim Fitterling, who was the CEO of Dow Chemical. Congratulations to Jim. Now it's gone from being a company that has a high yield but no reason to own to being a company that there may be some real earnings momentum in 2020. I also want to note that a lot of companies that are giving dividends that are high have somehow become safe because people feel there's not going to be a recession. And we do have stocks that are Teflon-ish. Boeing's become Teflon-ish. Caterpillar, I know it's down a little bit, but that's Teflon-ish. Unfortunately, 3M is not Teflon-ish. One of the reasons is because they made Teflon, and we are seeing that in Scotch Guard. We're talking about we're still talking about ground despoiling. We're seeing some business lines that were not that strong. I had thought that maybe people would start looking through and saying, it's not that autos are the problem, and once autos get better, you can own 3M, but the long knives are out. And the long knives are out for this PFAS poison, so to speak, in water. So I was hoping 3M would bottom like Dow. It is not bottoming.
Now, Jim, we do have a very exciting show coming up at around 10:45 a.m. over on bullmarketfantasy.com. We've got Evan Silva, we've got Mark Malone on. Yeah, Evan Silva has been instrumental. This is picking players, not stocks, in helping me get the most points in 1 year. And Evan Silva is one of my key gurus, and I think that you're going to want to listen to what he says because he knows that he picks players that are not rostered. A lot of people pick players as it doesn't really help because they're rostered on 40%, 50%, 60%. His guys are not rostered on, say, 95%. Like my friend John Hanson, who I spoke with this morning on XM Sirius XM, who I've known for a long time. These are the two guys that I've always used, and I think that they're special. Silva's very special. All right, we've got to head on over to our Action Alerts Plus Daily Rundown show to talk about more earnings and what you guys need to know. I'm Catherine Ross, and you can find us over at ActionAlertsPlus.com.